Trump promises if Hamas doesn't chill, their end will be fast, furious, and brutal. He also essentially declared war on Mexican drug cartels and BLM. Candace lights the internet on fire by teasing Charlie Kirk's betrayal. People are hungry for whatever batch of receipts she has now. Japan elects their first female prime minister, and she promptly sets about deporting all illegals. Ireland is literally on fire over the alleged rape of a 10-year-old by a migrant. And billionaire Palmer Luckey has some wild health advice that you've got to hear to believe.
I feel like it's Trump beat everybody, because I blink and there's a new terrorist group. I blink, we just bombed another South American country. I'm like, I like merengue, I like salsa. I don't got no beef with South America. Why we out here so hard? But everybody could get it. Argentinian, we buying their beef, and now we got beef internally. It's there's a lot of, we're fighting a lot of wars on a lot of different fronts.
Yeah, it's interesting. So reading all of this, I will admit that the first gear I was in was like, this is our peace president. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the initial headline reaction. But I think listen, I don't think Trump navigates these things perfectly well. I want to be very clear about that. But I do think that what you're witnessing is a very imperfect person who understands both sides of the leverage coin, which is the carrot and the stick. What you see going on with Argentina is very much all carrot. So I think he shares a value set with Milei and wants to make sure that they can point to them as a success story of prudent economic principles, of capitalism, like all of that. They want to be able to say, see, look, for 100 years, these guys tried the socialist experiment. It didn't work, which it really didn't. That's just objectively, provably true. And now the question is going to be, Milei called the shots, and we're going to do all these things. Seemed like he was having a good run, and then something happened. I haven't looked closely enough at the situation to know exactly what broke. But Trump is in there really trying to help make sure that they get to the other side of it. But all of these things are trade-offs. And so, of course, his base is like, hold on a second. Like, are we America first or not? So anyway, you put all this together. He knows carrot. He knows stick. In some places, he's obviously very willing to use the stick all across South America. I think you were saying that someone in chat was saying, forgive me for not knowing the names, but they were pointing out that a lot of what's going on in South America is really a US v China proxy battle. Yeah. And I think that's a really smart way to read that. I've been doing a lot of research on China's gold corridor. Just wrote a deep dive that touches on this. It wasn't about that specifically, but it touches on that. Coming out on Monday, please, guys, by the way, your embrace of the deep dive format is insane. I could not be more grateful. So we have the latest one coming out on Monday. And I think that's a really interesting read in terms of what's actually going on with all of our beef with South America. I don't know if that plays so much into the Mexico thing.
Let's jump into that, because that's actually what surprised me, is because Trump actually declares war on the cartel, saying this is a problem, we're going to take it over, and he's even suggested sending armed troops across the border. So this is Fox News when they interviewed him yesterday.
We're talking about sending military forces to fight against the drug cartels in Latin America. Do you think it's worth sending our forces, our U.S. forces there to take this on?
Cartels where?
Central Latin America.
Well, Latin America's got a lot of cartels. They've got a lot of drugs flowing. So, we want to protect our country. We have to protect our country. We haven't been doing it for 4 years. And we love this country like they love their countries. We have to protect our country. The fact that he has this impulse to be very protective of America, to be America first, to want to see us win, to be just hyper-focused, not on a global perspective, but on like, okay, my job as the president of the United States is to think about American citizens, to protect our borders, all that. I love that. But when you have... This is the classic case of people just trust themselves too much. When you get into the like, oh, there's a boat off the coast, just like hit it real fast with, a drone strike. That's where I'm like, oh God, there's a reason that due process is a thing. There's a reason that the founding fathers were extremely paranoid about any part of government becoming too powerful. And we're living through a period right now where, people want the government to be big, for sure. When you hear people talk about how many entitlements they want, when you look at the energy behind Mamdani,
all of that stuff tells me they want big government on that side. And then you've got another faction that wants to see, because they believe in Trump, they want to see him extend his powers, use more executive orders, go into more countries, boss more people around. And it's like, oh God, like this is the very thing that the founders were warning against is, yes, when it's your team, you get very excited. When you believe in the cause, you love to see a good riot. When you don't believe in the cause, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, what are we doing? This is crazy. This is out of pocket. We got to send in the National Guard. Like, we got to stamp this down. I am 100% guilty of that. Mm-hmm. When I think, yo, we can't let this go, I'm like, send in the National Guard 100%. But if Biden had been sending in the National Guard to places where it was something that I didn't agree with, because I really did not like what Biden was doing, I would have had a stroke. So I get, this is why you always want to flip it and look at, okay, my team is going to be out of office at some point. And do I want the people that I hate to have this ability? And if you do, great. If it's like, yeah, I've got no beef with that, cool, then push for it. If you would not want to see your quote unquote enemy wield that power, you don't want to let that power become standard. Yeah. And I feel like we're seeing a lot of that right now. You see a lot of the right cheering for this because, well, they like who's in power.
It's interesting to me, though, because I'm trying to find that balance between this is something that we're actually doing to try to keep Americans safe, and this is something that the administration thinks we're doing something to keep the American people safe, but it's kind of like a moving target. So it's almost like right after 9/11, the term terrorist meant you can't argue with it. If I say I'm going to get insurgents, yep, Cat William has a great joke about that. Like, as soon as you say insurgents, it doesn't matter what's the next sentence after that. Insurgents, cool, do whatever you want to them, kill them. They have no freedom, they have no rights, it's fine, because it's insurgents. I feel like we're kind of getting into that territory by saying, hey guys, fentanyl, let me do my tariff war. Right. Fentanyl, let me go into Mexico. Fentanyl. And as soon as people say that one word, it's like, okay, because I said that buzzword, now all accountability is gone, all due process is gone, Congress doesn't have to get involved. I'm going to use my emergency powers. How do we balance that? Because there is a crisis. I do care about the people that are overdosing, but at the same time, I don't want to just give Trump a free pass to go and move as he sees fit.
You need to, like, even if you're going to move the goalposts on what we're calling due process, you still have to have due process. Mm-hmm. So right now, if your due process is, I see boat moving, that boat's moving too fast to be anything other than fentanyl, like, hit it. That's where I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, there is an error rate. I don't know what that error rate is, but there certainly is one. And so having the humility to say, is hitting are we willing to hit, let's say, 10% of innocent people to make sure that we catch 100% of the fentanyl coming in via that means? I would say that that's the wrong answer. So if you're going to say this is a big enough problem that we're willing to just, drone strike on site, then put the actual Navy in that area, patrol that, shut it down. I'm not saying don't take the actions, but if we're really saying that it's important enough to just keep drone strike, then it's important enough to get closer to these boats and find out what's really going on. Because, dude, I'm just telling you, the attitude of I see this so clearly, I know that we can just kill without getting on that boat, without seeing who's there. That logical fallacy of thinking that you can see things clearly, that you are the one that ought to be able to determine the acceptable cost, that you ought to be able to determine just anything can be an emergency. You get into this position where you'll get not only do you create a problem in that moment because there's no way that you're seeing it 100% clearly, but you're also going to just exacerbate the infighting because now you're taking these more and more extreme steps, which makes the other side feel like they have to take more and more extreme steps. So every time Trump does something, even when I agree with him, if he does it in an extreme way, I'm like, the second that you lose power, they're going to have the equal and opposite reaction, and they're going to start doing things just as aggressive, just as by fiat as you're doing. And it's not necessarily going to be things that the other half of the country agrees with. And the fact that they can't all see that, the fact that they can't recognize that what we need to be doing right now is working together, finding a path to meet each other somewhat in the middle, creating transparency around that. So if you're saying, listen, this is what we want them to agree with, they're not agreeing to it, these are their demands, like what's going on with the government shutdown right now. All right, fair enough. Like if we just can't agree on anything sensible, but at least let me know what we're talking about. Right now, what Trump is doing is just move fast, kill things, and then figure it out later.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because this is also starting to break on party lines. Somebody even said it on the chat, is that Trump is starting to look like a neocon. He's going after other countries. Some people are saying for resources. Venezuela has oil. There's a lot of oil reserves in Latin America. This is now a proxy war versus China. We need to get our hemisphere locked down, just like China has Africa and some other Asian countries locked down. So there's all these new subjective takes. I don't want to be Candace Owens and try to connect dots, but it does seem like it's not what we're being told is not what's actually true.
That's always going to be true. So politicians are always going to spin. You look, when we first started doing the lives, we made a James Burnham button because I was talking about it endlessly. People really do need to remember read the book, The Machiavellians by James Burnham. He makes a very clear and cogent case for the fact that by their very nature, politicians, and I'll bucket elites in that, they are constantly trying to control the narrative. There's a reason for it. There's a very good reason why people want to control the narrative. It allows everybody to share a set of truth. It allows everybody to get on the same page and move together as one unified body, which, because we're in a moment right now where we can't do that, hopefully people can see what the value of doing that would be. Historically, that's been a lot easier to maintain. Social media made that effectively impossible. And so now you've got every narrative under the sun. And so the illusion that they create becomes so obvious that in many ways it stops working, because everybody knows and feels I'm not being told the truth. And so the problem is, once that center of gravity breaks and you no longer have a belief that there are three trusted sources, and there's going to be some discrepancy, but it's not going to be wild. We're going to more or less agree. We are way, way, way closer to the middle than we are right now, typically. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like I take this issue a little bit differently than you, but we're looking at the same thing. We agree roughly on a set of facts. And as that disappears, you start getting into like conspiracy brain, where now, because you don't have I can believe these trusted sources, it becomes, I can't believe anything anybody tells me except for whatever person you align with. And so once you get into that position, you start seeing things that aren't necessarily there. You start adding meaning to dots. The dots are really there, but you start adding meaning and connections to them that aren't real, that aren't true. And so this is going to have to play out, because you can't, at least from where I'm sitting, it would be a far worse disease to clamp down on this from the top down and say we're going to enforce one conversation, one set of truth, the way that they do in China or Russia. But it has a consequence when people don't trust anything.
Yeah. And he's getting some pushback. So I want to kind of set up a couple perspectives. So first, this is Rand Paul. He was on Piers Morgan yesterday, and he kind of came with an opposite take about the Venezuela situation.
Number one, there is no fentanyl made in Venezuela. Not just a little bit, there's none being made in Venezuela. These are outboard boats that, in order for them to get to Miami, would have to stop and refuel 20 times. They're in all likely going to Trinidad and Tobago, which is an island right off of the coast of Venezuela. So there's a lot of reasons to be worried about this. But number one is the broader principle of, when can you kill people indiscriminately? When you're at war. That's why when we declare war, it's supposed to be done by Congress. It's supposed to be thoughtful. It's supposed to be debated. And we're not supposed to do it willy-nilly. And then when you have war, you just kill people in the war zone. And even then there are rules of engagement. But interdicting drugs has always been a criminal activity and a criminal anti-crime sort of activity, where we don't just summarily execute people. We actually present evidence and convict them.
So is there a difference between how we traditionally approach it to what we're doing now? What do you think is kind of changing the landscape? Why do you think the game plan changed?
You're in fight or flight mode as a nation, based on economic problems that will not be interpreted as economic. It will be interpreted as political. When people are scared, that's what I mean by fight or flight. When people are scared, they're going to transmute that into anger, because anger is it feels far better than anxiety or insecurity. Then you need something to aim that anger at. If it doesn't have an anchor, it becomes hard to hold on to. Politicians understand intuitively or expressly that if I can point them at my enemies, then I can get them behind basically whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And so right now, what you see, because we are in a populist moment, because of debt and inflation, let's just never lose sight of why we've ended up here. It becomes people have that anxiety. They want to be angry. Politicians give them something to be angry about. And then it's like you just sort of indiscriminately point it at whatever you want using buzzwords, whether today's buzzword is fentanyl or terrorist or whatever. You use it and you get people all riled up. If you can get people to believe they're the reason that your loved one died, or they're the reason that your jobs are going away, they're the reason that you can't make ends meet, we just got to like get them. Then people are going to be like, yeah, fuck it. I need somewhere to place this anger. I need someone to be angry at because anger feels so good. And that's why we're in the moment that we're in. And the problem is that because so much of what's happening isn't going to solve our problems, you're getting more fear, more anger. And so people start lashing out. Now that also gets all mixed up with the fact that we have more reason to be worried now than we have in a very long time. From the dollar being devalued at just a distressing rate, the rest of the world starting to make slow, but they're making inroads in terms of getting the dollar to be used in fewer and fewer transactions. When you look at the number of central banks around the world that are holding US dollars, it's going down and down and down. So the US's position in the world is weakening. The US's position as a manufacturer has been obliterated for a very long time. AI is looming on the horizon in a way that is fucking with people. I don't think we're being honest about how anxious people are, and that anxiety just sort of sits in the back of the mind. So you put all of that together and you're just getting this accelerating bundle of anxiety constantly being translated into anger at a time where you've got all of that. Plus, you had 4 years of just wide open borders. And so a lot of the things that people are pointing to are real. You really do have an immigration problem. You really do have a wage stagnation problem. You really do have an inflation problem, even if it's down now. Dude, since 1913, the US dollar has lost 96% of its value.
Sheesh.
And what that means is back in 1913, if you wanted to buy something that cost $1 in 1913, okay, it cost $1, it would cost you $30 today. Think about something that costs you $1 right now, like a burger, like a cheap burger at McDonald's. I don't even know if they still do the 99-cent menu.
Nope, it's $3.19.
Oh my God. So this is what I'm talking about, dude. I lived off of the 99-cent menu for an extended period of time. And that is the, like, imagine the 99-cent menu is $30. That's the difference between then and now. And then if people want to be like, okay, but that's over 100 years, bro, in the last 5 years, you've had 25% inflation alone. So yeah, people are not, they're not able to track the cause and effect of how we ended up here. And therefore they will lash out at the real things, but they'll lash out in disproportion. So instead of saying, I'm going to be watching Japan very closely, my assumption about what Japan is going to do, because they're only at 3% immigrants, is that this is going to be a nice, orderly thing. These are the people that we're going to get out. We're going to go just sort of, knock, knock, gotta go. And they'll slowly over the next, call it 5 years, just push people out. Now, if they go unhinged, then okay, I will have been wrong. But my assumption is that given that they've acted early, given that the Japanese just tend to do things in an orderly fashion by culture, I think you can expect it to play out like that. And that is, I hope, going to be a model for many countries. We'll get back to the show in just a second, but first, let's talk about something that should terrify you. Every time you go online, you're being tracked. Your browsing habits, your location, your personal data, it's all being collected, sold, and exploited. And if you think incognito mode protects you, think again. That's where a VPN like Surfshark comes in. This is about more than privacy. It's about taking back control of your digital life. Surfshark encrypts your internet connection so no one can track what you're doing online. Not your internet provider, not advertisers, not hackers. You become invisible. Plus, it lets you access content from anywhere in the world, and one account covers unlimited devices. Here is the deal. Surfshark has plans starting at less than $2 a month, and if you're not satisfied, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Click the link below to get 4 extra months. And now let's get back to the show.
On the back of declaring war with the cartels, we're already kind of in this faux war with Venezuela. He also has just signed a domestic order claiming BLM and Antifa as domestic terrorist organizations. So this is from him signing the executive order.
Countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. In recent weeks, months, and years, we've seen a tremendous upsurge in some highly visible, but also other acts of domestic terrorism and organized political violence being perpetrated by radical, politically motivated groups all over the country. What this presidential memorandum will do is set off an administration-wide response to that, ranging from the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to other components of the Department of Justice, to the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Treasury. We're looking at interdicting these groups, preventing them from performing acts of violence, and also looking at sources of organization and funding and support that prop them up and allow them to do the acts that they have been doing.
We're looking at the funders of a lot of these groups, and when you see the signs, and they're all beautiful signs made professionally. These aren't your protesters that make the sign in their basement late in the evening because they really believe it. These are anarchists and agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess. I probably know them. And you wouldn't know it. You're at dinner with them, everything's nice, and then you find out that they funded millions of dollars to these lunatics. Steve, could you say a couple of words?
Yes, Mr. President. This is a very historic and significant day. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle the organizations that have been carrying out these acts of political violence and terrorism. What we have seen, if you look at whether it be going back to the riots that started with Black Lives Matter and all the way through to the Antifa riots, the attacks on ICE officers, the doxing campaigns, and now the political assassinations, these are not lone, isolated events. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well-funded, it is well-planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now.
What's your initial reaction? Because it seems like he's connecting everything from 2020 to what's going on now with Charlie Kirk kind of being the exclamation point. Do you believe it's like a coordinated effort? Do you think this is just kind of to that point of this is populism, people need a bad guy?
No, I think we're going to find out in the fullness of time that it's hyper coordinated behind the scenes. I've started seeing people putting out economic data on the NGOs and how they're donating money. And those groups, at least at the level that I'm at in my research right now, do seem to be involved in like the No Kings riots, the No Kings marches. So I will be very surprised if we don't find out that things like the George Soros Open Society Foundation aren't behind a lot of things like this. And there's several billionaires that are playing the game like that. So Mike Benz is the guy to look at for all this NGO stuff. I was blown away. I was literally changed as a human being, researching him for the interview that we did together. Which shout out, I should have memorized the guy's name, but somebody on Twitter with a decent following sent the episode around saying this is one of Mike Benz's best episodes. So yeah, I encourage people to watch it. He is very good at showing the financial breadcrumbs of how these people are donating, what they're going to, how money moves around the NGOs, how this started when the CIA was basically taken before Congress. And they're like, okay, so we're not going to be able to do some of the stuff we were doing before where we get a slush fund and we just go do all this stuff ourselves. So now we're going to get these NGOs to fund it for us. And that was wild because I had always had just a sort of generic belief that NGOs were do-good organizations. And the bad news is, I don't think any of these people think they're doing anything evil. I think that they are like hey, we've got these companies, we've got a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders, like, and by the way, we pick up companies that we think are, doing good things in the world. I'm probably being overly generous, but you get the idea. And so they go into a country and are like, well, if I do this and push on that lever and get to know this person, then we'll be able to corner the market on oil deals with whatever country in question. And that's going to be great for the shareholders that are invested in our fund. And so great. We made a lot of people a lot of money. This is wonderful. And my beef is with the lack of transparency, not understanding what they're doing, how much of this they're getting into trying to manipulate society itself. So there was a really interesting video put out about California by a friend of the show, What If Alt Hist. Shout out to our boy Rudyard Lynch. And in the video, he asked the question, like, why don't these billionaires build like public service things like libraries and things like that, like they used to, and this is his quote, in extractive times? And so my answer to that is they don't, because they're so busy trying to remake society itself. They all believe that they've got the vision for where this ought to go, and they're willing to put their money into it. And so whether that's George Soros and everything he's doing with Open Society Foundation and getting DAs to be more lenient and all of that, or whether it's what Elon Musk is doing with getting hyper involved in politics, obviously, buying X and fighting for freedom of speech. It doesn't matter if you agree with them. What matters is this is where they're putting a lot of their time and attention, is saying, I have a vision of a better society. I've got the capital to make that real. So instead of making my contribution to the world that I'm just going to go out and build these buildings, which they'd probably get stuck in red tape and morass anyway of trying to get that across the finish line these days. But instead of that, what I want to do is I want to go to the infrastructure of what makes things better, or I want to fix the things that make it worse, or I want to build the things that make it better. And so people are going to disagree with a lot of their assessments, but that's the game that's being played right now.
It's interesting to me, though, because I definitely understand the sentiment behind it. But I do feel like connecting Charlie Kirk's assassination with the No Kings protests, with Black Lives Matter, with Antifa, is kind of lumping everybody on the same side and just calling them all kind of political enemies. Well, and that's the part that I'm a little bit apprehensive about, is where it comes down to like, the left is a domestic terrorist organization versus saying there are domestic terrorist organizations. And I know that designation seems like minute, but some people are seeing this as, okay, Trump is just doing, everybody who's not my political ally is now a political enemy, and not just an enemy that I'll battle with in Congress on the floor, but a political enemy that I'm going to try to have executive orders against, and I'm going to take judicial powers against. And I'm just worried that, again, when the tide goes to the other side, we're going to now say, okay, well, the Proud Boys and everybody who was on January 6th, they're now domestic terrorists, and let's go after. So it kind of seems like, I don't know if this is good, because you're calling American people who were just marching 2020 because they were frustrated they were locked in the house and they kept seeing people die. I don't know if they're the same terrorists that we think they are versus the people who are actively causing insurrections, people who are actively doing bombs and Teslas and things like that. I just don't want a broad brush to be painted on everybody that ever protested against Trump, period.
I think that's very wise. The question becomes, why is he painting them with that broad brush? I think this will help people understand what Trump is actually doing. From where I'm sitting, Trump has a playbook in his mind, which is, okay, I can do executive orders, I can do emergency powers, and then I can get law and order back in place. I think if you try to map him as only a self-serving political animal, he'll confuse you. But if you map him as a self-serving political animal who actually does love America and actually wants law and order, again, you don't need to agree with him on those things. But if you're trying to map his behaviors, if you think of him as somebody who is extremely patriotic, loves America, wants to see America do well, not exclusively, because he is a self-serving politician, narcissist, megalomaniac in some ways. So like all of that is also true, but he also happens to love his country, and he's a big law and order guy. So when he looks out at the world and he sees people being violent, pushing back on things that he likes, now he's like, okay, wait, what was that stack of things that I have again? I have executive orders. Okay, I'm going to do what I can there. Oh, I have emergency powers. That'll really let me do some shit. Oh, wait, if I designate these guys as terrorists, then I've got all this stuff that I can do to them, including, because the big scary part in this meeting for me is you will notice going from right to left, you've got J.D. Vance, then Scott Bessent. Okay. So Scott Bessent is very close to President Trump. That is not an accident. This order matters. Everybody's fighting to be the one that's standing right next to the president. Of this, I assure you. And so what Scott Bessent said when he came into office was, I spend most of my time doing economic warfare. Okay, let that sink in. So Trump, it wants to use that same economic warfare against the people that are marching against the things that he likes. So he's like, well, if you look and squint just this way, you can make them terrorists. Now, when they're classified as terrorists, I can do all this other stuff, including economic warfare. So I'm going to go after these people. Now, I can't sound a loud enough alarm bell. Even though I am not a fan of Antifa, even though I am not a fan of much of what has come from BLM, making them terrorists so that you can go, no more bank account for you. That without like due process, I'm all for pursuing these people, build a case against them if they're doing something illegal that they shouldn't be, prosecute every single one of them. But just as, let's say that Letitia James ends up being guilty of everything that she's being accused of, I don't want to see anybody go, well, let's just first label her as a domestic terrorist, and then this gets a lot easier and we'll push her through the system that way. It's like, you've got to do the thing. You've got to go and build a case and prove it, because these guns can and will be turned on you at some point for whatever thing is that we do that's out of step with the government. And we want the government to be afraid of the people. We do not want the people to be afraid of the government. And so I'm perfectly willing to accept that there's going to be some amount of, dickheads on the street doing things in protest where it breaks violent. And rather than us just categorize everybody as a terrorist to make them easier to shove through the funnel, we're going to go, we have to go on the street. We have to arrest them. We have to build a case against them and then put them in jail. What I don't want to see is we go pick them up off the street, don't arrest them, or we arrest them, but let them back out. The charges are low. No. Like if you're throwing rocks at cops, bro, that changes your life. The second that rock leaves your hand, your life is different forever. You are going to jail 100%. So, and I don't care what side of the fence you're on. So throwing a rock at a cop needs to be a Rubicon because look, I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. I am a big believer that, hey, if a government gets tyrannical, you've got to be prepared to stand up against it. But the reality is, just like if you think your wife is acting outrageous because she's about to be on her period, you better be sure that you're ready to play that card before you do it. Bro, before you say, I'm going to exert my Second Amendment rights because I think the government is tyrannical, before I throw this rock at a cop, dude, you've got to be like, yes, I'm going to change my life forever. It's that important to me. And if you fail to push that line that far back, your life is going to suck.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, the government should not be going so quickly to, you're a terrorist, because then it just looks like the Canadian trucker convoy to me, and that's absurd.
And I guess that's my worries, because we're seeing it already with the Venezuelan boats. Like, oh, no, they're drugs. That's cool. Then it's going to be like, oh, a bunch of these people got arrested. Oh, they're Antifa. It's cool. And we're just kind of now making these designations to just wave people off. I want to jump over to the Hamas thing that you brought up earlier. Now it kind of seemed that the tone is changing, not necessarily that he's going to get him, but that he has had other people, other countries sign up to help out with him. So I think this is a big win, because it alleviates us from getting in another forever war. But also it just can also show that there's pressure from the surrounding countries to actually clean up the region. So
if this ends up being true, and by the way, it's row 7, if it ends up being true, this is historic. If he really has the surrounding Arab nations that are like, we'll put boots on the ground, we're prepared to go in and just absolutely hammer these guys into oblivion, that would be insanely impressive. Now, Trump is known for rhetoric, so he'll say a lot of things that doesn't necessarily come to fruition. But Drew, honestly, if he pulled that off, I would be more impressed that he got Arab nations to put boots on the ground in Gaza than that he got a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. That would be just absolute legendary status. Now, no matter how you shake it or bake it, no matter who the troops are, if you're going door to door with guns, you're back in Iraq. This is not going to go well. This will not be fast. It might be furious. It might be brutal, but it's not going to be fast.
Okay, this is the Trump social, the Truth Social. It should be Trump Social. He owns it. But either way, numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity at my request to go into Gaza with a heavy force and straighten out Hamas. If Hamas continues to act badly in violation of their agreement with us, the love and spirit for the Middle East has not been seen like this in 1,000 years. It is a beautiful thing to behold. I told these countries and Israel not yet. There is still hope that Hamas will do what is right. If they do not, an end to Hamas will be fast, furious, and brutal. I would like to thank all of those countries that called to help. Also, I would like to thank the great and powerful country of Indonesia and its wonderful leader for all the help they have shown and given to the Middle East and to the USA. To everyone, thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. As a writer, I have to take my hat off to Trump because he has a voice, man. Like when Trump tweets, he knows it's a Trump tweet. Like it's very specific.
Yeah.
Like,
There's no way around that. Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here, but I'm not super high hopes for peace between Israel and Gaza. This is why culture matters so much. And when your culture is, from the time you're a little kid, you're taught they're the enemy, they're the reason things are bad here. We've got to erase them from the map. I mean, that's what you grow up believing. That's going to be really hard to turn somebody around. So, and when your attempt to turn them around is a whole lot of bombs, that tends also to not work so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is when you try to win hearts and minds, it becomes very tough, man, because if you try to win hearts and minds by giving them your value system, it will not work. So you've got to win hearts and minds by allowing them to have their own value system and making a bridge. Look, oh God, whenever you're trying to do something, look back in history and say, has anybody done this well before? And if they have, figure out what they've done. Here's the problem. The people that have done it well, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, they both had the same 1-2 punch, Drew. And it is... Ooh, buddy, that 1-2 punch is, I will kill every single one of you, man, woman, and child, in the most horrifying, brutal way that you can imagine if you defy me even once. But by the way, if you don't, I'll let you keep all of your traditions. I'll even wear some of your clothes so that you feel recognized. Like, I want you guys to thrive and do well. But did I mention, I will literally kill all of you. I don't care. Age, sex, doesn't matter. I will hack you to pieces in front of your family, one at a time. I will stack your limbs like fucking wood. But hey, I like your outfits, you guys. So the same two people that at one point basically were able to conquer the entire world, that was their strategy.
So you said something earlier. You were like, if you map Trump as a selfish madman, whatever like that, that's the wrong way to map him. Map him as somebody who loves America. As a madman who loves America. Just to be very clear. No, but I mean, like, you've got to have both. I think Putin loves Russia. Yes. I think Xi loves China. I think Mao loved China. But am I going to give you Mao? No. I'll give you everybody else. Yes. But I do think he loved China. And I think that that's the thing, is like this whole greater good. And if I could just protect my people, it doesn't matter if the other people get like taken out. No, it's not even quite that. Certainly not with Mao. The analogy that's just too perfect, but is so oft repeated that people really lose sight of how powerful it is. If you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. So if you want to usher in the utopia, you have to kill tens of millions of people. It just is what it is. It's not that I want to. It's that if you want to make an omelet, you're going to have to break some eggs. And that was Mao's. That's Mao. Got it. Okay. So even if you grant that he wasn't essentially Jeffrey Dahmer on steroids, then that's the most you're going to give him. Now, I need to read. I just found out that he wrote a book on strategy. I knew he wrote a book on like essentially communist philosophies, but I didn't know he wrote one on strategy. So I need to read that because it is clear that he was brilliant. Like, I'm not saying this guy was a buffoon. He very much wasn't. But it's just, it is a scale of evil that is so hard for me to wrap my head around that I probably have done exactly what I warned people not to do with Trump and just pointed at all of his bad things. But the outcomes from Mao are unbelievable. People just do not understand what happened in China in recent memory. Yeah. Candace Owens. Don't worry about the gag order in the Charlie Kirk case. I plan to violate it on the world's behalf. The things I've discovered this past week are enough to burn the house down. Yes, Charlie was betrayed by everyone. dun, dun, dun. And then she disappears for 2 weeks. I love Candace. I'm team Candace because I just feel like we need people to fuck people up. I just feel like we need anarchy.
Need people to fuck people up.
We need people to keep them on the toes. Like, I need a Candace Owens to exist in life.
Got you.
So that way other people
You're not worried that she's going full conspiracy.
What is full conspiracy?
Let's define it. It's somebody who can no longer, they don't have an internal map for how to judge whether something is plausible or merely intriguing. And I think that Candace is seeing patterns where they don't exist. She's showing signs. I don't think she is schizophrenic, but she's showing signs of paranoid schizophrenia. Signs, only signs like, hey, tangential, but like it's accelerating. And so I don't know if this is, she's just very good at pattern recognition and she's not keeping it in check. If in the final analysis, we're going to be like, oh my God, Candace was right about everything. That is possible. And I don't want to remove that from the table. But while I watch her, I'm like, okay, there's a big difference for me between somebody like Joe Rogan, who enjoys conspiracies, but feels very tethered to reality, and somebody like Alex Jones, who, even though he really does find a lot of this early stuff, it's like the number, if you watch his channel, literally every day is World War III. And everything is a conspiracy, everything. And so I'm starting to now, as I think about categorizing people, Candace has sort of marched her way out of the journalist box that I had her in my mind, over into the I see patterns where patterns don't exist conspiracy theory box, where I'm like, I worry that she isn't using an internal rubric with which to anchor herself to say, okay, these things probably aren't true. And we're going to go through a very substantive portion of the interview between Mario Knopfel and Stephen Gardner, where they debunk her claims one by one. And look, Stephen Gardner could be wrong as well, but it shows that she can make a wild claim and produce receipts, but then another person can come along with receipts that counter it. And that's why where I try to put myself when I'm analyzing stuff, and this certainly reflects in how I invest, where it's like, okay, I have a strong belief, but I know better than to trust myself 100%. And so I'm literally trying to hedge my own bets to make sure that I never lose by too much. It also means that I'm going to cap my upside. I'm never going to win by too much. But this is one, let's play a scenario where Michael Saylor, who's making an all-in bet on Bitcoin that I consider to be completely irresponsible. Let's roll the tape forward and say he becomes one of the richest or the richest men in the world. I'll never look at that bet and go, that was a quote unquote sensible bet. I'll look at it and say he was right and he is reaping all of the rewards, and he has way more confidence in himself and his ability to read the situation than I have, and he has got all the the wealth to show for it. But I'll never think it was sensible, because there's just too many things that could go wrong. Humans can misread the situation. The world can change in ways that were fundamentally unpredictable. And so I don't think it's a wise way to live your life. And so there's something called the survivorship bias where, yeah, we're on the timeline where he happened to pull it off, but I'm also on the timeline where my Pomeranian was loose in the Mulholland Hills for 36 hours with coyotes, and I still managed to get her back. But I've got to imagine if the multiverse is real, basically every other timeline, she became coyote food. So it would not be sensible for me to say, oh, you can just let your Pomeranian go wandering around the Mulholland Hills for 36 hours and it'll be just fine. They won't be. So just
but as an entrepreneur, though, there is a benefit to being non-sensible sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes you got to roll the dice. Sometimes you have to go against the grain. Sometimes you have to ask questions that shouldn't be asked.
Yeah. And I would say I totally get, like, again, if he pulls it off, you're going to see me laugh, smile, clap. I'll want to get him on the show. I'll want to let him take a victory lap. I'm not going to be throwing stones at him. I'm just saying it's not a sensible thing to do. Now, you'd have to get me to define sensible, and that's all my beliefs and all my value system and all of that. So you've got to take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, I've got that internal metric by which I judge things. And so I make my decisions based on that. It feels like Candace has lost that. She doesn't, or maybe never had, but she doesn't have anything that she comes back to and says, like I say, I know better than to trust myself 100%. Just blanket. So I think I have all the receipts. I still don't trust myself 100%. She trusts herself 1,000%. And I cannot figure out how life has taught anybody that that's the right thing to judge things by.
Just with Alex Jones, like, yes, there's the Alex Jones is right meme, but Sandy Hook got all 1.5 billion and they're going to take the name right to his studio. Like, he still has to kind of deal with him being wrong big in that scenario. So by no means, if Candace is wrong on all this, she deserves her day in court, whatever. If she gets sued, she deserves a payout. Like, she has to walk the plank if that's what really falls out. I am from the nil of, like, Marisha said it in, like, the government lies to us. The CIA is destabilizing institutions all around the world. There are so many times where, like, a corporation has enlisted the CIA to destabilize something and we'll give you a kickback to the government. Everybody gets paid. So to me, like, there's so much political goodwill that came from Charlie Kirk's death. There's so much political benefits that happen from it. Even if it's 1% of me, I do have a certain level of suspicion to how clean it was. Again, we read the text messages live. Hey, my lover, who is also a trans furry who lives down the street. Like, I'm sorry, my dad, who you know was a Trump supporter. Like, there's certain things that just doesn't necessarily pass the sniff test for me.
Now, they're going to cover that in the video. He's got a very plausible argument for what that could be and not be tied to the CIA.
As far as the text messages go, I have mixed feelings about those because I believe that they're real, but I think they also could have been pre-planned in order to make Lance Twigg look innocent. Oh, I had no idea that my lover was going to go kill this guy. You know, like, I'm just as shocked as the rest of the world, right? So I believe they're real. And the forensic expert I talked to, he said, Stephen, most people don't realize this, but Tyler Robinson's cell phone is going to be the second most important piece of evidence next to the gun itself. And I was like, really? And he said, they're going to be able to track whether he went on the week before. They're going to track every movement.
One thing you and I were both like, yo, there is something fishy here. Like, nobody writes like this. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to, like, if you've already talked about it, you know that your boyfriend knows exactly what your plans were, but you need a way, you know they're going to look through your phone and you need a way to clear them, then you might, like, overstate everything just to make sure that there's no possible lack of clarity. And so that's where you get sort of the ridiculous, like, it's extremely detailed, saying things that, like, obviously that person would know. You're talking as if the two of you have no context. I think that's because they know the people reading the text messages won't have any context, or it's at least a very
he did that to
plausible
protect
read.
his lover.
Yeah, it's a very plausible read that, because he's like, he goes in Discord and essentially admits to the crime. So it's like, this is not somebody who was like, oh, I'm definitely going to get away with this. So he turned himself in. So yeah, it feels more and more like this was somebody who did it. They were prepared to be a martyr, and they wanted to make sure that nobody else got in trouble for this. That seems like a very plausible read. I don't know. I haven't seen every conceivable angle, so I'm not going to say, oh, that's definitely what happened. Yeah. But that seems very plausible.
Let's jump over to Japan now, where our original link got community noted, but there's a new...
Really? Because that... Okay, yeah, so what you'll notice very quick if you start doing research is she's like the minister of mass immigration or something. Yeah. So she's not the new, whatchamacallit?
The actual prime minister, yeah.
So it's funny that they, that they conflated the two.
But there is a new policy. The new prime minister immediately created a a ministry of mass deportations.
Mass deportation,
excuse me. I said mass deportations. And then this is a speech that
This is the prime minister.
Yeah, this is the prime minister, and this is a speech that she said about kind of ruling it out. It's interesting because Japan is going through a population decline, and instead of trying to import replacement people, they would much rather hunker down, but we'll get into that. Let's see what she says first. As for me, I want to have a calm, mutually considerate relationship with foreigners. How can we live together in such a way? I intended to reconsider it completely. I plan to think about it from zero again, because year after year, the culture between us and everything else is so very different, yet people are being brought in all together. To keep bringing them in this policy, we must pause and reconsider it. Those who come with economic motives and claim to be refugees, such people will be properly sent home. Also, regarding those who overstay illegally, they too will be strictly required to obey the law. Yeah. So it seems pretty straightforward. I don't see malicious intent. She's not saying, get the Muslims out here or anything like that. However, because of the demographics of Japan, is this a surprising turn?
No. I mean, it is an absolute tragedy that the birth rates are so low in so many cultures. As somebody who has chosen not to have children, admittedly, I always feel bad about pointing out how important it is for people to have kids. But on balance, if the majority of people aren't having children, you've got a problem. And obviously, because it takes two people to make a kid, you need them having more than two kids. So Japan is really in bad shape from a demographic standpoint. But the reason that I'm a Japanophile is because Japan is different. If Japan were the same, then there would be no draw. And the funny thing is, I really discovered Japan as like an area of super interest very late in my life. I was always intrigued, I admit. The cyberpunk aesthetic has always spoken to me since the 80s. But really learning about Japanese storytelling and how potent of a style of storytelling it is. And because they had the nuclear bombs dropped on them twice, they just became such a fascinating culture. Watching them shift from like the ultra hardcore samurai culture to watching that become the salaryman culture to seeing like how they respond to repression. Dude, I'll try to do a speed run on Japanese culture.
Yeah, my bad. I did practically you right there. But.
So, okay, speed run on Japanese culture goes something like this. We are a small island nation. We have to get very hardcore. We have a very collectivist mentality, very disciplined, very much like samurai culture for sure was you were willing to give your life for the person that you work for. And if you ended up, they died or whatever, you became a ronin, you had to just like wander around. There's so much honor culture, all of that, like honor means everything. And they build all that up. The Mongols try to conquer Japan and get pushed back twice. They're like the only culture that was like, get the fuck out of here. Mongols rolled over everybody, but not the Japanese, okay? That's who you're up against. Japan fucked up China. In fact, China now is like, oh, bitch, wait till we get big. We are going to mow over you. Rumor, allegedly. But like that one is, there's a lot of bad blood there. So Japan were like sort of tyrannical and very good because they were so disciplined, militaristic, like really, really hardcore. And then we dropped some bombs on them. And now it's Hello Kitty. So it's like, what happened?
I love these speed runs. This is the only way I want history now.
So it is this incredible transformation where you can still feel that really brilliant engineering culture, the collectivist mentality, which I've spoken many times about how much I absolutely despise it. But they also have, like, you can feel the repression like bubbling up and coming out in these really interesting ways. And they're like this fascinating blend of Buddhism and Christianity now. And so they've just created this really, really fascinating, like tech forward, very futuristic, but the blend of the past and the future and this sense of like post-apocalyptic because they've really lived through a post-apocalypse, like, and the sense that, oh my God, we were the villains in World War II, but America helped us rebuild. So there's this really interesting relationship that they have with their own past. But that hardcore culture doesn't just go away. So they created this generation of salarymen who basically work themselves to death, literally to death. Sheesh. And the hard work culture there went from like these very rigid caste structures into a modern style economy. But because they were so disciplined, so hardworking, literally willing to work themselves to death, they just, through the 80s, it looked like they were going to take over the whole world. And that's why if you look at like, even movies like Back to the Future 2, all the anxiety is around, we all work for the Japanese. This is why in Die Hard, his wife works for a Japanese company. Like it just looked like the Japanese were going to take over everything. Then through some economic jujitsu, we were like, all right, you guys need to chill. And we sort of have put them in timeout for 40 years. Whole nother long story there. But like that is given birth to a style of storytelling that literally dwarfs the rest of the world. I cannot tell you enough how in America we think, oh, Marvel's the comic book that rules the world, right? And then you realize Demon Slayer which is a single manga title, outsells every single Western comic title combined. Combined, Drew. In Japan, a single was known as a tankobon, which is like a collection of, I forget, it's like 6 standalone episodes of manga of a series called Bleach, The 1,000-Year War. No, sorry, lie. It was Boruto. Boruto, which is like the successor to Naruto, if people know that one, sold 10 million units. That's insane. In physical print. Dude, that's insane. So, and that's in Japan alone. If you go into any airport, you're going to be able to find manga. It's wild. So the Japanese have found what I did not make up this title, but I think this is really bang on, what's known as illicit storytelling. So something a kid wants to read, but they don't want their parents to see that they're reading it. And when you like look at children's entertainment in Japan, it's dope. Like people getting shot, they're bleeding. It's like even in One Piece, Luffy D. Monkey, this is for kids, okay? In the opening like chapter of One Piece, the kid's like 9 or 10 years old. To prove that he can be a dope pirate and that he's not afraid, this kid in a book for kids, a graphical book, stabs himself in the face with a knife. And through the rest of the series has a big scar on his face, okay? They show it, he takes a knife and just stabs himself in the face. Okay, so the Japanese don't play. There's this like fascinating thing that you can feel the repression below the surface and it bubbles up in a way that other people around the world are like, oh my God, there's some truth in this, that even though it's bombastic and over the top and completely outlandish, it speaks to something in people. So anyway, that difference, we all benefit as a society if that difference is preserved. And if that difference, whether it be Italy, China, Japan, Korea, America, England, Saudi Arabia, if those differences aren't preserved, the world becomes way less interesting. And what we're seeing now is people realizing, oh, those differences are born of values. And oftentimes those values are spread through religion, but some of it's just continuity of what were your parents like? What were their parents like? And so what we're seeing through mass immigration is the beigification of the world. And it sounds good because it sounds tolerant and it sounds welcoming, but in the end, it sucks. And it sucks because you don't get different flavors. Everything becomes one flavor. And then, and here's the big thing people don't want to confront, whoever becomes the most aggressive culture, the most cohesive culture is going to win. If they have high birth rates, agenda, they know what they're trying to do, then they're just going to run
manipulate
through
the system.
100%. And right now, the culture that seems to be doing the best at that is Muslim culture. And so it's like, that's why so much of this centers around, okay, wait, are we mad at Muslims? I would say, no, you're not mad at Muslims. What you're mad at is anybody that has a different value system than you coming in is going to be a problem. It's just that they actually have a clear agenda and they're not bashful about their faith. They believe in it. This is what we believe. And so wherever we go, we are going to proselytize. You will notice there are a lot of Christian countries. Why? Because this is what Christians did back in the day. So it's like, hey, this is a tale as old as time. This is not about being Muslim. This is about doing a thing that works. So now we're seeing people go, yeah, I'm not for this.
Speaking of immigration, let's go across the pond. I don't have an Irish accent. O'Hare.
This is going to go bad fast.
Connor,
isn't it?
yeah, this is terrible. This is all I got, guys.
I don't even know what the hook would be. Like, at least for the Brits, you've got like top of the morning and things like, although that sounded more Irish, if I'm completely honest. So
yes. Eddie, give me all your Conor McGregor Irish accents in the chat, please. We're jumping over to Ireland because tensions are rising. Citizens are setting stuff ablaze. Vehicles are getting overturned after a 10-year-old girl was raped allegedly by an African migrant, but nothing was done. So it's getting like pretty spicy. We have some on the ground commentary, but just initially we're seeing rocks getting thrown out there. I don't mean to laugh at it. The dumpster thing is hilarious. I don't know if you've seen it at the end of this video. Guys, watch this. Hold on. It's coming. This guy was so excited. Hold on. It's coming. You see that little orange like dumpster thing?
The funny thing is, I thought maybe there was something incendiary inside of it.
Yeah.
So if I was a cop, I wouldn't find that funny. I was surprised they didn't back away from it.
Like this is like, you can say what you want. I feel like this is antagonistic. Like some of these people need to get locked up. Like, bro, this is kind of crazy.
If you are throwing things at cops, you are saying, I don't mind my life changing.
And then he just stopped. And he was so mad. He was so mad. He thought he was doing something. But okay, yeah. What's going on? I understand that there's pushback. But is this the way to solve the immigration problem?
This is not the way, but this is what is going to happen. So this is one, Drew. I don't know what to do with the fact that humans will not change course until they are suffering so much that you reach this kind of boiling over point. This is when I really do feel like whether we are programmed in a simulation or not, we act like it. It is the perfect metaphor. And so all of this is super predictable. You've had plenty of people screaming about this from the tops of the roof. You had, why do I always blank on his name? Man, Strange Death of Europe, The Madness of Crowds. Dave Smith is not an expert. Somebody please.
Douglas Murray.
Thank you. Douglas Murray. He wrote a book where he was like, boys and girls, you will push these people, meaning England, Western Europe, into a corner, and they will eventually respond violently. This was 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Like it didn't take a genius to figure out
pressure cooking.
Yes, like okay. I really think the big problem is that people are super confused with racism versus value system problem. If I could just get everybody to understand, people don't care about sexism. People don't care about racism. They just want to hear people that believe the things that they believe. This is why Japan elected a female prime minister. When you get a female prime minister who's just full gangster and is like, I want all these people out, then it's like, oh yeah, I don't care that it's a woman. I just need somebody that's hardcore. I need somebody that matches my energy. I need somebody that thinks the way that I think. I don't need somebody white. I need somebody that matches my energy, that thinks the way that I think. That's it. And so because we spent God knows how much time wasting time arguing about race, we missed the fact that this is a values problem. And when values is the one thing people will kill for. Values. And I don't know, people like,
give me liberty, give me death. I'm gonna kill you.
Yes. People cannot map to why do people slaughter for their religion? Because religion is a way to transmit values. God said this thing, man. He said this thing matters. I'm willing to lay my life down for it. Okay. So what you're seeing now is people that have been pushed too far and they're spilling over. And I think violence is stupid. I think that letting it get to this point was ridiculous, which is why I'm going to be watching what goes on in Japan like a hawk, because my hope is that they've responded so early. I forget, somebody said that the immigrant number in the UK is 35%. I don't know that it's that high, but it's high. It's double digits for sure.
Yeah.
And if Japan's number really is 3% immigrant and England's or UK's is really double digits, you get Japan acting now, getting somebody that's like, hey, we're going to solve this immigration problem immediately. That's when you do it. You do it at 3%. You don't wait until it's 15%, 20%. That's where you start really having problems.
And then this is kind of on the ground reporting. It's literally as he's talking, there's like fire behind him. It's kind of chaos. So it's to your point that this is not something that's going away. I just hope that it's not something that's going to get worse, but it seems like we're going in that direction.
I'm here at the protest at City West Hotel, where a migrant, an asylum seeker that was supposed to be deported, stayed in
literally
the
there's a cop car on fire behind him.
A 10-year-old Irish girl that was in state care. As you can see, things are massively kicking off here. There's probably well over 1,000 protesters. Unfortunately, this isn't the first crime we've seen like this, even in the last year or two. So things are really reaching a boiling point here.
I feel like ICE is the American equivalent of, all right, we need to round it up, kind of get these people out of here. Do you think it's as simple as they just needs to be Irish ICE, a UK ICE, round some people out, kick people out, and everybody's like, yes, we're happy now?
It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. So they are going to need to do that. They need to start enforcing the laws. and they need to have a go forward immigration plan. So are people still coming into the country? Like, is this something that's exacerbating itself? So you are going to have to do all of that. And then I don't know what their rules are against people speaking out about this. Like, I don't know, what city was it? Was that Dublin?
I'm not sure what city it was.
So I know that a small part of Ireland is Northern Ireland, and that falls under UK rule, but the vast majority of Ireland does not. So I'm pretty sure that's under the does not. So I don't know if they're clamping down on people in the way that the UK is in terms of what you can say. The UK won't even let you talk about this. The UK has arrested Tommy Robinson God knows how many times. And so if they're doing that, they're going to make the problem worse, because if in this moment people feel stifled, then they're going to push back even harder. So you need to let people talk about this. You need to let them come up with legislative solutions that are going to certainly stop the problem from getting worse. And then you're going to have to find a way to get rid of the illegal immigrants for sure. I would say in an orderly fashion would be ideal. And then you have to figure out, okay, if we let a ton of people in the country already, now what do we do? Because if you've got people that are there legally and they have come in under your laws, they followed everything, and now they're there, but they're an immigrant, what can you do to, my take would be to get them to assimilate. So things like, the US, if we haven't already, and I don't think we have, but we should have an official language, should be English, mandated by law. Everything should be in English, full stop, period, end of story.
When you say everything, we're talking like
anything the government puts out.
Gotcha.
So if taxpayers are paying for it, it should be in English.
Yeah.
Things like there's the big debate on the driver's license test. Should somebody have to speak English to get a driver's license? To me, obviously, yes. So there are things like that you can do to force people to assimilate. And we should certainly be doing those things. And then I'm going to guess countries like this should as well. I do not like the idea, if we legally let you come here, I do not like the idea of, sorry, now you got to go. If you did everything by the book, you came in, you followed the rules, all of that, I'm not a fan of booting them out. But if you came here illegally, GTFO.
Palmer Luckey has some very interesting health advice. So we were just talking about, G's running a marathon. I had a fitness goal recently. Palmer Luckey has the alpha for you guys if you want to get right in 2025.
This is wild.
I'm really afraid that nicotine might be really, really good. That you've probably seen this theory, right? Like that, basically America smoked its way to being the dominant hyperpower. It kept people focused. It kept people fit. It's an appetite suppressant. Yep. There's this really interesting health trade-off theory that I'm not saying I buy into it fully yet. So for people who are watching and shouting and screaming, I don't buy into it fully yet, but I'm becoming more and more convinced that the health benefits of not smoking have not been properly traded against the health problems caused by the resulting eating, not just in terms of appetite suppressant, but also just people filling cravings and filling the need for ritualistic.
Well, I would tell you out of experience
with other things that are worse for you. I think the crazy version of this is we'd all be better off with lung cancer eventually, but fit until then. And it could be that smoking gets you there. So
there's two levels to analyze this video at. One is God bless Palmer Luckey and people like him for being willing to go, hey, no, let's really rethink this. Maybe we are better off with lung cancer right up, till the last minute, as long as you stay fit until then. I love it. Look at things from the strangest angles. Fantastic. Then the other is from the just health perspective of it all. Drew, can I make an obvious statement?
What's the obvious statement?
The other option, other than smoking and getting lung cancer, is don't eat bad food. You don't have to be fat, by the way. It's not like Palmer, who, God bless him, truly, I think he is brilliant. And I am so glad that he's on Team America. This guy is amazing. But the fact that he carries more fat around than I is not accidental or luck-based. It is entirely what we each choose to chew and swallow. So there is a way to get through life where you don't have to get lung cancer to be healthy. Now, having said that, I fucked with nicotine for a minute. And
you were on it.
It's real. It's real. So the only reason I stopped is it hurt my hand.
It was the sugar? Or?
I think it's just the sugar in the gum, which is the way that I was getting it. So I've really, in the back of my mind, I want to find a method that I can get the nicotine without the sugar. Because boy, oh boy, that is a drug you feel. That's not like do I notice? I was like, yo, this is rad. I was timing it for like when we went live.
We can tell.
Oh, dude, I would love to get back on it. So somebody's saying Zyn. If Zyn, do you have to is it a pouch? Because that sounds disgusting. But if it's something that has no sugar and I can get the nicotine, I will try it in a heartbeat. Yeah,
this definitely reminds me of we used to call it in college the weed diet, where there's people who would smoke a bunch and they'll smoke themselves out and then they'll kind of be sunken in and hollow and lose a bunch of weight.
That's wild.
And it's
dude, weed makes me want to eat. Eat.
Yeah. But I feel like there's you either overeat when you smoke and then you get the munchies, and then I'm a chronic smoker and I smoke all the time, to hit Lucky's point that after a while, you just kind of hollow yourself out.
Well, he's talking about nicotine. So nicotine specifically is an appetite suppressant and may have nutrition partitioning things about it where it gets your body to process the nutrients in a different way. I don't know. I heard that years ago. I never looked into it, but I remember thinking, ooh, that's interesting. But I don't know if it functions purely on an appetite suppressant or if it actually does make your body respond to the nutrients in a different way. I don't know.
I do think that there is something to different people react to different substances. Famously, Lil Wayne used to smoke weed, drink lean, recorded 6 mixtapes in one summer.
That's wild.
And then he, so much so that Juice WRLD, Future, other people saw that and were like, oh, I need to get like Lil Wayne and start doing that.
Right.
And he kind of created all these people with substance abuses. Russ talked about it where it was I was smoking thinking I had to be like Lil Wayne, but then I couldn't handle it, so I was just strung out all the time. So it's definitely to each their own. Everybody has their different lines.
I think people have to be careful. So my wife has a friend that can smoke 5 joints in a day, pure weed joints. And I'm like, that is wild. You have built your body's tolerance up at that point.
Yeah.
And I admittedly am very nervous about long-term health consequences. And if you haven't seen the Charlie Sheen documentary, it is fascinating because in that, God, who was it? Spikolsky. Oh God, what's his name? Married Madonna. What? Sean Penn? No. Yes, Sean Penn. Thank you. Sean Penn was like, dude, most people do cocaine and they want to have sex, but they can't have sex because literally, physically, they can't get an erection. And he was like, Charlie Sheen does not have that problem. He was like, I think Charlie Sheen is built different. I think Charlie Sheen can do a lot of drugs that other people cannot do. It affects them in a different way. There's supposedly some percentage of the population that when they drink alcohol, it wakes them up. And those are the guys that party all night. Alcohol puts me to sleep. Yeah. So if I have a bunch of alcohol, I'm just going to be laid out, man. So I don't have the pull to drink because it's just going to make me tired. So I think people have to be very careful mapping to someone like Lil Wayne, who might be in a situation where they just metabolize the chemicals very differently or have an ability to function that is way different than the next person. So yeah, if you're trying to sip lean and smoke weed like him or like the way Snoop Dogg smokes, I don't know, man.
Yellow Knight was smoking was the OG Ozempic back in the day.
Yeah, facts. Dude, I know so many people back in 80s and 90s who were terrified to stop smoking because people would just balloon when they stopped.
And Gary said he's high right now. So, hey.
There you go, Gary.
There it is. You could be playing video games.
It's 5 p.m. somewhere. It's 5 p.m. somewhere.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Until Friday, be legendary. Take care. Peace. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. Trump has actually managed to get all living hostages returned in Israel. Hamas, though, promptly starts executing Palestinians in the street. China tightens its restrictions on rare earth elements, causing